Welcome to another episode of Build with Bitcoin. I'm your co-host Israel Munoz. I'm joined by the other co-host Lynn Bairstow. Today we have the pleasure of welcoming Roy Sheinfeld. Roy, welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Israel and Lynn. Thank you so much.
Roy is the CEO of Breez, which is a company devoted to using Lightning in order to accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin as a currency or as a method of exchange. And so we're thrilled to have you on, Roy, and we'd love to start out with just talking a little bit with you about how you got involved in Bitcoin to begin with, and also as an extension of that, Lightning, because you and Breez are one of the earliest companies that are really devoted to accelerating Lightning development and making it easier for people to adopt Lightning in their companies. So perhaps you can explain a little bit about Breez and your journey.
Sure. We started Breez in 2018. Personally, I started following Bitcoin in 2013. After reading the white paper, I really kind of went down the rabbit hole of trying. I didn't know it was going to be so complicated, and understanding what Bitcoin is about, what the paper is about, actually. So I've been personally following Bitcoin since 2013, trying to understand anything and everything related to mostly the computer science aspects of Bitcoin, the blockchain, and the game theory behind the blockchain. And in 2018, with the emergence of Lightning Network, I saw an opportunity to help Bitcoin transform from digital gold to a currency, to a medium of exchange. I saw Lightning as a keystone infrastructure in helping Bitcoin evolve to become a day-to-day currency. And that's why we started Breez. I started Breez together with two friends that worked with me in my previous startup. I'm coming from a traditional enterprise B2B background. I used to be the co-founder and CTO of a company called Harmony in the enterprise B2B collaboration space. And together with two Bitcoiner friends, after learning, delving into Lightning, we understood that Lightning is something special, and it's a technology that we can build upon, and that's why we started Breez early 2018.
And so it sounds like you were a previous co-founder then at the other enterprise startup company, Roy? Okay, so you'd already been through the entrepreneurial rounds, let's say.
I wasn't like your typical entrepreneur, or actually I started, my entrepreneurial journey is quite unique. I'm coming from a software engineering background. I actually didn't went to college I didn't have any official education of computer science. After in Israel, there's a mandatory military service. After leaving the military, I started working in Israeli high-tech companies. I kind of liked moving around from one company to another, and from one project to another, developing in different languages, exposed to different products, different projects. And in one company that I was supposed to be 3 months, doing a project for 3 months, I kind of stayed for 15 years. And that's the company where I started as temporary gap filler. I actually rebooted the company and became a co-founder and CTO of Harmony.
It sounds like you came to Bitcoin kind of from a technical space and was, from your background in computer science and was interested, but were there other aspects of Bitcoin that really made you gravitate to it and go down the rabbit hole? I mean, as you talked about, you wanted to see it evolve as a currency. Anything in your life experience or just, we love talking with people from different parts of the world than the Western centric, US, where so much of this innovation is concentrated. But with Israel and myself being kind of having LATAM connections, anything about Bitcoin beyond the technology that really kind of called out to you?
Yes, of course. I don't think people gravitate to Bitcoin just because of the technology. I think Bitcoin is amazing in many aspects. I think, especially the convergence of the multidisciplinary aspect of Bitcoin. It's not just computer science. It's not just economics. It's not just game theory. It's really convergence of multiple disciplines. I think by the end of the day, it's a question of your personal values and what you want to do in the world. And as a person that was always was concerned about the power of the state and lack of personal freedom, this is something that I was kind of thinking about way before Bitcoin. Empowering individuals and kind of changing the state of the power balance between the state and the individual is something that was always close to heart. And of course, immediately I was attracted to Bitcoin in that regard. Like everyone that understands Bitcoin understand that money and control over money, that money is being used as a system of control. And the fact that Bitcoin allows us and kind of changes the scale between the power balance between the individual and the state, the entity that controls the money, of course, it was something that was very appealing to me.
Yeah, and you kind of remind me a little bit, Roy, of the first time I read the white paper, which, by the way, if anyone listening hasn't done that yet, I'd highly encourage you to do so, because I think there's even just the abstract, that initial piece, the maybe even, I believe it's just the first page that Satoshi starts to touch on these topics you mentioned, Roy. There's a lot of technicality to what Bitcoin is. And of course, the white paper has lots of stuff that, most people won't understand. But just fundamentally, he hits on that precise point of, a central authority will, throughout history, just prove again and again that they will abuse that power, right? And so why is this money important? So, I mean, I love that, I guess, that origin or spark, Roy, because I think it is a very common ground and kind of common place to start for anyone interested in this sector to kind of build their own path through, right? And of course, you took the more technical path and trying to develop Lightning payment infrastructure, which we'll get a little more into. Thank you for touching on that, the core why this is of purpose and value to you. Maybe, on that point, Roy, how do you view Bitcoin between this, we have some pretty open discussions right now on, is Bitcoin a store of value? Is it a medium of exchange? What comes first? I'm personally not convinced that there's necessarily a right answer. I think it's kind of working in both of those directions, but I'd love to get your take on that topic.
Sure. Yeah. Fundamentally, what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the ability to move value without the involvement of any third party or any intermediary. That's the kind of the basic essence of and the ingenuity of the Bitcoin technology. When people say there's no intrinsic value to Bitcoin, no, there is an intrinsic value to Bitcoin, and that's the intrinsic value of Bitcoin. The ability to move value from point A to point B without involvement of third party, that's the utility, and that's the value that Bitcoin brings to the world that is very unique to Bitcoin. So inherently, because of that, what I'm saying about the essence of Bitcoin, of course, I see the value of Bitcoin in the movement and in the transfer of value. I think there's a false dichotomy between store of value and medium of exchange, and I'll explain why. I don't like the discourse. The discourse is serving a narrative, and we need to think about why the narrative of store of value has evolved. We can touch about that because I think that's a very interesting topic. But let's take a step back for a second. Bitcoin right now is being used mostly as a speculative asset. Let's be honest about it. People that are buying Bitcoin are buying Bitcoin because they are betting on the value of Bitcoin, because they believe the value of Bitcoin will grow, and then they will be able to sell it for fiat in a larger fiat amount, and to make money from Bitcoin as speculative asset. I don't mind that, by the way. It's perfectly okay. But if that's the main use case right now, and I think there was between 14 to 39 trillion dollar value transfer in 2022. If you take a look at the on-chain transactions that Bitcoin has processed in 2022, you'll see somewhere, it's hard to calculate, because in Bitcoin, when you make a transfer, you don't know if the transfer, there's always when you move value, the value goes to the destination, but there's also the change goes to the sender wallet or to another wallet. You never know. So it's hard really to guesstimate the exact amount that was moved in Bitcoin when only by looking at the Bitcoin chain. But we know that the number is huge. It's around, it's between 14 to 39 trillion. And if we understand that this amount of value was moved mainly because people are buying Bitcoin because they want to speculate on Bitcoin as an asset, how do you call that? It's basically trading. Is that trading store value or a medium of exchange? Like, where does this use case lie? If you need to kind of assign it to a group, is that because Bitcoin is a medium of exchange, or people are kind of buying and selling Bitcoin because it's a store of value? I don't know. It's because of both. Because they can buy and sell it, because it's a great medium of exchange, and of course it's a great store of value. That's why they're betting on Bitcoin to begin with. So I don't really like the dichotomy that people are trying to create. I think a great medium of exchange becomes a great store of value, and I think a great store of value needs to be a great medium of exchange. I want to help Bitcoin become both. I think Bitcoin needs a lot of work when it comes to a medium of exchange, the ability to move Bitcoin in a fast, cheap manner that will apply to multiple use cases. That's why I'm, from a technical standpoint, focused on helping Bitcoin grow and evolve to be a better medium of exchange. But I think Bitcoin is both, because I think Bitcoin is the best money that we have in the world.
Roy, can you talk a little bit about Lightning itself as a technology and how it operates with Bitcoin, and to kind of further that, what Breez does in terms of how you are utilizing or sharing Lightning in order to increase this ability to use it as a medium of exchange?
Sure. Lightning is Bitcoin. There's no difference between Lightning is not something that is separate to Bitcoin. Lightning is a technology. It's a layer 2 technology that allows people to move Bitcoin faster and most of the time cheaper than the way that they would have moved it previously to Lightning. We won't get into the kind of the technical details of Lightning too much, but in a nutshell, I like to use the abacus analogy. If you remember the way that people are used to do math using moving beads on on a string of wire. The idea behind Lightning is the fact that not every transaction needs to be published to the Bitcoin blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain is expensive. There's not a lot of space in the Bitcoin blockchain. There's constantly competition on the transactions that can be mined in a single block in the Bitcoin blockchain. It's mined every 10 minutes. There's a specific there's a close space that can go into each block. That's why you can see sometimes that the fees in the blockchains are spiking, because there are many transactions that are competing in order to get into a specific block, and that's why Bitcoin in its raw form can be used as a medium of exchange, because it's hard to think that you can go into your coffee shop next door and try to buy a coffee and wait at least 10 minutes to buy coffee, and you don't know how much it will cost you to send the funds to the coffee shop. The Lightning technology comes to solve this exact issue of being able to move Bitcoin faster, cheaper, and at scale.
Jump in. And that's by design, correct? Bitcoin made a trade-off in terms of the amount of transactions in order to ensure its security. I mean, just to kind of clarify that it's not necessarily a fault or a limitation. I mean, it's a limitation on Bitcoin, but it was an intentional trade-off for so the layer 2 was envisioned, the kind of the Lightning layer, or I mean, when Satoshi wrote the white paper, he didn't, he knew that there would be future technologies that would supplement what Bitcoin core was in order for the security to.
Yeah, I think Satoshi understood that the blockchain can't scale by definition. There's a famous quote from Hal Finney that talks about Bitcoin banks as a way to scale Bitcoin, meaning using Bitcoin in a custodial fashion to scale Bitcoin. I think Satoshi definitely, but also a lot of people early on understood already that blockchains, and we see that now, blockchain, you can't maintain a blockchain in a secured fashion and do that at unlimited scale. It has a scalability constraint if you want it to be secured. That's kind of the trade-off. You can't have a secured blockchain at scale. The only way to mitigate it, for example, is to enlarge, to make the block space larger, bigger, like Bitcoin Cash, like what Bitcoin Cash did. But then the immediate trade-off is the fact that not everyone can run and validate the Bitcoin transactions, which is the core essence of being able the reason behind running a blockchain in the first place is for everyone to be able to run the blockchain itself and to validate the ledger by themselves. And so of course you can't scale blockchains, and then the only way kind of to help optimize Bitcoin transactions is by adding layers on top of the Bitcoin mainnet, and Lightning in that sense is another layer to Bitcoin that is using the underlying technology of Bitcoin, meaning every Lightning transaction is actually a Bitcoin transaction. The magic, the trick is that in Lightning, not every transaction needs to be published to the chain, meaning not every transaction is competing with other transactions on the block space in the Bitcoin chain. And that's kind of the magic behind the Lightning Network.
Okay, so great. And this technology has been around for what, maybe 6-7 years or so.
Yes, the white paper came out in 2015, and the first mainnet transactions, I think, were very early in 2018.
Okay, great. So it's a very nascent technology, and what is Breez doing? So we've talked about what Lightning is as a technology that facilitates, cheaper, faster payments for Bitcoin. What's Breez's role within that, Roy? Maybe we can get into, what you and the team is doing at Breez.
So basically, what we want to do is to bring Lightning to the masses. Breez is a self-custodial Lightning as a service solution that every application developer, every service integrator, every company in the world can use our SDK in order to add Lightning payments to their own solutions and do that in a peer-to-peer manner in a way that doesn't require them to hold users' funds.
Really important point. I just want to drill down on that a little bit more, because what you're saying is that, some of the benefits of using Lightning or transacting on Bitcoin versus traditional financial systems are immediate settlement. Smaller amounts are able to be transacted among parties peer-to-peer. The elimination of a third party getting involved in the transaction. So these are all real benefits that for anybody globally operating. And so you're saying that Breez can bring this capability to basically any entity, any business can integrate the Lightning network on their payment platform.
I think you covered some of the features of and some of the value proposition of what we do. I think the story is bigger than that. Like, if you think about what we're doing, and when you think about Bitcoin, and we can again talk again about what is Bitcoin and why Bitcoin is needed in the world. People can't transfer value the way they transfer information right now. And that's the main problem in the world. Bitcoin is a way to solve that problem, but inherently, we had like a huge internet revolution. The world is completely different than it used to be 25 years ago, where the consumption of information, the transfer of information dramatically changed, and the way we behave interacting with regards to information has completely transformed our life. But when it comes to the transfer of value, we're still like decades behind the internet revolution. So something needs to change. Like, we need to be able to transfer value the way we transfer information. For me, Bitcoin and peer-to-peer money is the only way to create internet money. It's the only way to create the ability to transfer value similar to the way that you transfer and interact with information. We basically need a global currency. We don't have a global currency, and Breez's mission is to help Bitcoin become a global currency, the currency of the internet. And when we talk about our specific product, the ability that we help application developers and companies integrate Lightning payments into their own solution, basically, what are we doing? We're helping companies adopt a global currency that, using this global currency, their users can send and receive payments in a peer-to-peer manner with users of the application itself, but interop with all all users that are using the same currency. I think it's very clear, if you take a look at what's happening in the world right now, that the only solution or the only hope of us living on this globe, being able to have a global currency, is Bitcoin. And basically, our strategy to promote that and to help companies adopt it is to make it super easy for them to integrate it. We don't want people to become Lightning experts or Bitcoin experts or understand anything about technology in order to kind of use Bitcoin as a currency. We are really lowering the barrier of entry every developer can integrate Lightning in a matter of a few hours, and with that superpower, now they can able to start sending and receiving Lightning payment in a peer-to-peer fashion, and start using Bitcoin as a currency.
You use your analogy, which I love, about transfer of information versus transfer of value. So if you look back at the development of the internet, it would be like today, no company thinks that they need somebody to know all the nuts and bolts about how email works or transfer of information. So you're basically kind of the pipeline or the infrastructure for this transfer of value in a decent way.
That's exactly that. What I'm old enough to remember that like the first interaction with how difficult it was to transfer information. Like we used to write sockets. We used to write the protocols, the underlying protocols on how to communicate with other information transmitters. It was super hard to do, and it wasn't standardized. It was completely proprietary. Every company had its own way of transfer information. The HTTP protocol didn't exist when I started programming. With HTTP and which the standardized stack, you start seeing interoperability between different information providers. And that's exactly what's going to happen for transfer of value. Bitcoin is an open, permissionless, borderless network. And once a company is going to start adopting Bitcoin as a standard of moving value, they will be open to an open network of companies that are interacting on top of the Bitcoin network as well. So the possibilities of exchanging value across different applications and across different services, the possibilities, and I can't even fathom the ways that people are going to use these technologies.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to kind of make its way into every aspect of the economy, right? I mean, just as information and the internet has made its way into all aspects of the economy, well, now we just have that complementary value transfer, right, in an open network. So Roy, if I'm hearing you correctly, okay, me as a business, let's say, I get the concept of what Bitcoin is and this technology of that allows me to send and receive borderless open money sounds useful to maybe my users, right? So what Breez allows me to do is to basically be able to plug into, to integrate that technology and redefine myself how I want to use it, what the user experience will be. And that's done through you mentioned an SDK a little bit ago, which is essentially a toolkit. Is that fair to say, or how would you describe it?
SDK is a software development tool. So that you basically add a library to your project, and in a matter of hours you can send and receive payments. It's that easy. It's not really complicated. Yes, of course, as a solution, as a product manager, you need to think about how to integrate it in a way that would make sense to your users. But having this superpower within your app can be add tremendous value to your users. And what Breez is doing is lowering the barrier of entry of you need to understand how this technology works. You don't need to understand. You can, by the way. Breez is completely open source, completely free to use from a developer standpoint. And you don't even need to use the Breez services. Like if you get into the nuts and bolts of how we are implementing the technology, you don't even need to use our services, but you can use our code because everything is open source and free to use. But what we're doing, we're allowing you to transfer value with just a few lines of code. That's what we're doing.
Roy, I wanted to ask you about the open source aspect. Can you just expand upon that a little bit? Because I think there are, first of all, Breez, I do want to shout out, you were probably the first company that became like a Lightning service provider to kind of create that concept of making it easier to transact. And then with the SDK, that expanded that capability. The fact that you have it open source, this is a benefit to companies that are adopting it because it gives them flexibility of change in the future. But it also opens you up to competitive. I mean, why did you choose the path to go open source versus closed?
Yeah, great question, Lynn. Yes, we invented this concept of a Lightning service provider. I actually coined the term, I can't remember when it was, maybe 2019. I came up with this concept of a Lightning service provider. And the Lightning service provider, an LSP, exactly like an ISP, helps an end user that doesn't know anything about the Lightning Network plug into the Lightning Network, exactly like you're a user of the internet. We don't know how the internet works, but what you do, you take your modem, your router at your home, and you plug the socket, and you plug and you plug the router to a socket at your home, and you're magically connected to the internet through an ISP. LSP brings the exact same notion to the Lightning space. An LSP is a service that takes an end user and plugs the end users to the Lightning Network. And from that on, this user can interact with other users in the Lightning Network. So we brought this notion of a Lightning service provider to the Lightning ecosystem. We brought this notion of Lightning as a service. You don't need to run Lightning nodes. You don't need to know anything about Lightning in order to kind of bring your users to Lightning. We call it Lightning as a service. And these are concepts that makes it easier and lower the barrier of entry for mainstream audience to kind of interact with the Lightning Network. Why open source? Because open source is the only way to go when it comes to Bitcoin. If we want to have an open monetary network, open source is the only way to implement an open network. You can't have a closed source vendor that interacts in an open monetary network. The only way for it to be open is for the code to be open as well, because if the code is closed, then the network is closed. We don't want to be gatekeepers of the open monetary network. We want the open monetary network to succeed because we think Bitcoin has the only chance to succeed as a global currency because of its openness. So we can have a closed source component that blocks people from participating in the open monetary network that we think will bring value to the network itself. So I think the only way to develop Bitcoin software is in an open source manner. And when I say open source, I mean free open source, meaning everyone is free to reuse the code that we develop. We want to compete on providing services. So we want to be an LSP. We want to provide services that helps people plug into the network, and we want to be the best service provider that we can be. And I'm all for free market, and I'm all for competition. And I think if we will do what we need to do, we'll be able to compete on providing the best service to users. And if we're failing, that means that we were supposed to fail. There's a better service provider that provides a better service than us. So I'm not afraid of competition. On the contrary, I encourage competition because by the end of the day, I think Bitcoin is not a single vendor. It's not a problem that a single vendor can solve. Bitcoin will succeed as an open monetary network with many players providing many services to many different users. I think if we'll do our job correctly, I think we'll make a lot of money as an open source company. So I hope
I love this.
I hope I was able to kind of rationalize why open source.
No, you did. And I think, I love this train of thought going back to the early days of the internet, which I also was a part of. But, the promise of the open flow of information was exactly that. It was open source. And then somehow or another, it all changed to where we had these gatekeepers of information and silos of information. So the fact that now with this new opportunity of the transfer of value in the same way we transfer information, the open source component, I think, is essential. And I really celebrate Breez for taking a leadership role in that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think compared to the internet, I think there are services that can provide more value because they're more centralized. I mean, if you take a look at Twitter, Facebook, the fact that these products succeeded in the market is because they were able to provide the user experience that is very hard to deliver in a distributed, decentralized manner. And it's not about right and wrong. It's just the fact that they were able to provide a good user experience and a different user experience that stem from them being centralized. I think the way that Bitcoin works is kind of different. Bitcoin power, the power behind Bitcoin and the real value proposition of Bitcoin is the interoperability aspect of Bitcoin. It's the fact that Bitcoin is, as a bearer asset, can move across different applications and different even sub networks. So that's why I think open source is key to Bitcoin and interoperability is key to Bitcoin.
And on that point, Roy, so given the nature of this open interoperable network, there's several Lightning service providers now. So I'm going to maybe choose a certain Lightning service provider based on the services and features, right? So Breez, what sets Breez maybe a little apart from the rest? I know you guys have since your core been a non-custodial Lightning service provider. Can you maybe go into a little bit more of what makes Breez slightly different than some of your competitors?
Definitely. I think Breez is the only non-custodial Lightning or self-custodial. It's a better term. I'm trying to educate myself and kind of changing the term from non-custodial to self-custodial because there's always custody. It's a question who retained the custody. But Breez is the only self-custodial Lightning as a service solution in the market today. If you want to provide your users the ability to transfer value in a peer-to-peer manner, I think we're the only game in town right now. Of course, I encourage competition, but our technology is very unique. And actually, it's not a single vendor solution as well. We use a lot of infrastructure built by other companies in order to deliver this value proposition. So Breez, the Breez SDK is very simple. You have a send payment, receive payment API. But behind the scenes, what's happening is that we are creating user nodes. Every user is becoming a node in the Lightning Network. And these nodes are run in the cloud. And actually, we're using the Blockstream Greenlight infrastructure in order to allow us to run nodes in the cloud at scale. They have a fantastic solution of a scalable node platform. We connect these user nodes with liquidity providers. We have an open LSP platform where different Lightning service provider can provide liquidity and put liquidity in the network. We can talk about that, why Lightning is a liquidity network, what's the function of liquidity inside the Lightning network. But I think in a nutshell, what I want to say is that the Lightning network is incentivized, is an incentive trust-based network, meaning you put liquidity in the network and you want to make money because you've put liquidity in the network. And the way to generate ROI from your liquidity is by processing Lightning transactions. As a node in the network, you want to facilitate the transfer of value, and you want to make money because you help facilitate this transfer of value. And we have an open model that makes it easy for people with liquidity to put their liquidity in the network. So we take the node platform from Blockstream, we connect it to an open LSP platform where we bring more liquidity to the network. We have on-chain interoperability, meaning we provide users the ability to move funds from the Bitcoin chain to the Lightning Network and vice versa. And we allow people to on-ramp and off-ramp from fiat. If they want, for example, to buy a Bitcoin with their credit card, we allow them to do that easily with our SDK. So basically,
Okay.
glue that takes these multiple components and converge it into a very simple API of a send or receive payment. But the underlying technology is very complicated to understand, B, to operate. It's a very comprehensive solution. Open source. Back to your question, Lynn, about open source. Even if the code is open, the know-how of how to run the underlying platform is huge, and I think we have a very unique positioning in the market to do that. There's not a single company that takes all these different components and aggregates everything to a very easy to use solution.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of work going into what you're providing here, Roy. I mean, just to get a sense of the team as well. How big is Breez so far? How many of you are there?
Breez is 11 people to date. We're hoping to grow in the near future. Most of the team are developers based scattered across Europe mostly. I'm based in Tel Aviv. And we have business developers and marketing based in New York.
Speaking a little bit about geography, I mean, Bitcoin is a global currency. How are you viewing, there have been regulatory issues, for example, in the US with uncertainty, I guess lack of clarity versus anything. When you're a self-custodial, which I love that term, I'm going to start using that instead of non-custodial, but the trend of governments is wanting everything to be KYC and have control over it. But how are you viewing that? And what is the perspective of Breez in terms of where you operate geographically? And do you see any hurdles or limitations with regulatory unclarity or restrictions?
That's a great question. I think I think the unique value proposition of Breez, the fact that we're doing a self-custodial Lightning, does allow us to operate globally without any restrictions. That's the bottom line. There is regulatory clarity around the self-custodial, or if you don't take control over user funds, you can operate freely and globally without any restrictions. Definitely in Europe. The only thing that changed in the last few months in the States is there were several things that happened legally according to FinCEN and interpretations of the FinCEN regulation. It's perfectly legal to operate a self-custodial solution and a self-custodial wallet. I think that this will continue to be the case according to our legal analysis, according to our legal counsel, according to our understanding on how this technology can evolve. I think self-custodial will be allowed to operate globally without any restriction. Definitely in Europe, even according to the latest MiCA regulation, but also in the States. We need to see by the end of the day, if they will want to ban crypto and Bitcoin, if governments will want to do that, they will do that. It has nothing to do with self-custody or not. If they will want to ban Bitcoin, they will ban Bitcoin. I think what we're trying to do in promoting a global currency, I think our bet on self-custodial is the only it's the only play that has a chance to work. Meaning, if we fast forward the future, there are two possible options. I don't know if you saw the show Dark Matter. There's a show right now in Apple that about parallel universes. So let's imagine two parallel universes where we have a global currency. One parallel universe is the parallel universe of a global, decentralized, Bitcoin-based global currency where users are allowed to hold their currency and transact really in a peer-to-peer manner with other people in the world. That's one universe. The second universe is a global CBDC universe when there's only one currency, one global currency. And yes, people are allowed to interact using this global currency, but it's highly regulated, highly supervised, highly surveilled by the entity that issued this CBDC. So if that's the end game, that there are two possible end games, what we're trying to do is to promote the decentralized free manner of transferring value. Currently, it's completely illegal. The worst thing that can happen, and we already saw that happening, is self-regulation. I think there are companies that are not doing enough due diligence, and they're not doing the work, and basically they're not taking the risk that they should take in order to create the future that that I want to live in. So yeah, sorry about me rambling on the peer-to-peer, but I think peer-to-peer is our only chance of transacting globally in a borderless open manner. So I think it's a future worth pursuing. If you're asking me, are there risks involved in pursuing such future? Yes, there are risks. So what? No risk, no reward.
There's always risk involved, right? I mean, and I definitely don't want to, be going down the path of that second universe you mentioned. The and free one sounds like it's it's worth pursuing. So, to that point, I mean,
I just want to say, Israel, that I kind of trust humanity. I think people are essentially good. I think the decision makers in the States as well, and I think they want also to build a better future for all of us. I'm not a cynical person, so I think when push comes to shove, and maybe it will require a Supreme Court decision or something in the US, I think goodness will prevail. And I think people will be allowed it because essentially it's a question of property rights. And I think if we're betting on the future, people will be allowed to hold their money. And that's the future I'm betting on.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Roy. I mean, I feel the same, actually. I consider myself also a believer in that good will prevail, and that a lot of this is actually just kind of waking up to this technology, education, service providers like yourselves, so I think we just kind of need to wake up to the fact that this already exists. And so to that point, actually, Roy, sometimes I think people hear all these fancy terms and new technology, and it sounds like it's kind of still in this early development stage, which of course it is. But just to be clear, this is already available and ready to use, right? And specifically the Breez SDK. I mean, where are you guys there, and maybe who are your customers so far?
So the Breez SDK is relatively new in our offering. Like we had to learn a lot and invent this concept of an LSP, operate our own wallet in order to understand and evolve the Lightning technology. We released a better version of the Breez SDK a year ago. We brought it to market, and currently we have dozens of customers, mostly from the Bitcoin ecosystem, because that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. A Bitcoin company that already has Bitcoin support, if they want to bring Lightning to their users, for their users to interact in a cheaper, faster manner with Bitcoin. So that's kind of our low-hanging fruit. We have a Relay from Switzerland, a large Bitcoin broker in Europe that is using the Breez SDK. We have Bitbox, a hardware wallet that is using the Breez SDK. We have the Blockstream Green wallet that is using the Breez SDK, and many other companies, Vault, bringing Lipa, which are Bitcoin companies. What we're focused on right now is actually working with crypto companies on integrating Lightning capabilities into crypto solutions. We just announced a partnership with Cake Wallet, and they're going to release next month in Nashville. They're going to release the integration with the Breez SDK. We're working with other multi-coin wallet provider in order to add Lightning capabilities into multi-coin wallets. We have many large wallets in our pipeline. And if you take a step back and look at our go-to-market, you can see we're starting with Bitcoin companies. We have many Bitcoin companies that already integrated the Breez SDK, and we're working with others. We're starting to extend to the broader crypto market. Next will be fintech, and my holy grail after Lightning established some credibility in the market is to go after large mainstream applications, and that's kind of where we head as a company. We want TikTok to integrate Lightning. We want social networks like X to integrate Lightning. We want to see Lightning being integrated into mainstream user applications. Also in new applications that kind of converge the transfer of money and the transfer of information. I think that's where we headed, but it takes time to establish the credibility of Bitcoin as a currency till we get there. But the process is very straightforward.
Often in the Bitcoin space, there's this division or this hard line between Bitcoin and crypto, but you don't have that. Can you explain a little bit about your thinking about how we all should be thinking about the evolution of Bitcoin and how we work with our brothers and sisters in crypto and approach that?
Again, you can be there's all in life. You can always take a cynical point of view, or you can take a look at the glass half full and be positive about people and why people behave the way they behave. I don't think all crypto is bad. I think Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. I don't like to create this separation between Bitcoin and crypto and to say we're different, we're not like crypto, and not because we're not different. We are different, and proof of work is very much unique to Bitcoin, and I bet my entire career and spend all of my time on Bitcoin for a reason. However, I think it's a self-defense mechanism that we created by saying we're Bitcoin, not crypto. Why are we saying that? We're saying that in order not to have a discourse on the differences between Bitcoin and crypto. And I feel sometimes it's a lack of self-confidence within the Bitcoin ecosystem that kind of draws these lines in order not to have interaction with other people in the crypto ecosystem. And there's no reason not to interact with other players in the crypto ecosystem. Some of the players wants to do good and wants to bring value to users. It's not just pump and dump. It's not just about shitcoinery. Yes, that exists. By the way, it exists in Bitcoin as well. A lot of people are trying to pump the Bitcoin price for no good reason in order to make money. So let's not be hypocrites, and let's be honest with ourselves. I want to get, and I'm completely transparent and honest about it, I want to get to as many users that I can. So I want to integrate Lightning, and I want to bring Bitcoin into crypto. I feel that's my mission right now. I feel because we created this dichotomy between Bitcoin and crypto, a lot of crypto solution kind of avoided integrating Bitcoin. But I think crypto users are interested to use Bitcoin as a currency. I think we need to lower the barrier of entry of crypto solution in integrating Lightning. And I think once we'll compete with other cryptocurrency, people will see the benefit of Bitcoin and Lightning. So I'm not afraid of any discourse. I'm not afraid of any interaction with crypto. But by the way, I don't like to patronize and kind of educate the market. If the market sees value in crypto, the market sees value in crypto. I don't want to argue with the market. If people are seeing are finding value in Web3 or DeFi solutions, okay, they want to lose their money. Okay, it's up to them. But why are we creating this separation and not interacting with the broader crypto market? I also think that from a technology standpoint, there's a lot to learn from a crypto solution, ZK rollups and other technologies that are integrated into cryptocurrencies are finding their way back into Bitcoin as well. So yes, I'm against drawing lines in the sand, and I'm all for communicating the value of Bitcoin, bringing the value of Bitcoin to crypto users. And maybe some of the Bitcoiners won't like it, but I think we need to interact with the real world.
And I think it's a very valid ethos, Roy. Bitcoin itself was born as an open network to eliminate barriers and gatekeepers, and some of these lines you speak of. So, to me, it just kind of sounds like, in very simple terms, let's just compete in the open market with good technology, and people will decide what technology is valuable, what money is valuable to them, and period.
And there's a lot of developers that are uneducated about Bitcoin, and they don't even know something like the Breez SDK even exists. And the reason is because there's this meme of Bitcoin is not crypto, and you can use Bitcoin as a technology, and if you want to develop a DeFi solution or a Web3 solution, you need to do it using some other technology. You can do a lot with Bitcoin, definitely when it comes to payments. Yes, it's true that I think the only use case of a cryptocurrency is payments. I think by the end of the day, there's a lot of hype around crypto that is, there's no real substance behind it. And the financial solutions that are unjustified, and they're put in place only to pump the token behind them. That's true. But if we want to compete as a medium of exchange, I think we need to open ourselves into the broader crypto market. Let's be honest, what's the most used token right now in order to exchange value in the world is USDT. That's the most used token. So I want to compete with USDT.
Yeah, no, well, it's a very refreshing perspective, Roy. So, we appreciate it. I think it's been a very valuable conversation. We're hoping to get into some other topics regarding maybe some of your relationship with your venture capital backers, and so some other things we didn't get to, but that's okay. With an hour is kind of a tough time period to to fit all of these deep discussion points in. So I know we're kind of wrapping up. Lynn, I don't know, any other points you think we should hit on before letting Roy give some final comments?
Well, I've so enjoyed this conversation, but Roy, I think just if you could, I mean, you have such a great perspective and coming from your background, but is there any advice that you would give a developer or someone interested in working in this technology? What advice would you give them in terms of pursuing a future in developing or building with Bitcoin?
That's an interesting question. It's like, yeah, don't do it. I would say even like it's like a kid coming to his father and asking them if they can be an artist or a painter or a musician. No, don't do it unless you absolutely have to do it. Like if you feel that that's your purpose in life, and you can't avoid this purpose and manifesting yourself in that manner. If that's the only way to do it for you, go for it. But if you have a way to avoid it, avoid it. Like it's tough. It's tough. It requires a lot of conviction, and it's a future. It's a dream that we're building from a vision. Like there's nothing in reality that tells, like no one tells me I need Bitcoin. There's no user that says like, okay, I need Bitcoin. It's a future that we envision for the world. Exactly like Henry Ford saying about faster horses. I think people are looking for faster horses, and they're not understanding and they're not comprehending the value and the ways that Bitcoin can change their life. And in order to deliver that value and to manifest that value, you need a lot of conviction. So don't do it unless you're 100% sure that that's your destiny. And if you have that conviction, and if you're 100% sure that you need to pursue that future, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. I'm willing kind of to share my experience, which is absolutely amazing. Like I wake up every day with a smile on my face. I don't know how many people are in that position, but I absolutely love what I do, and I can't imagine myself doing anything else. But it is hard. So don't do it unless you have to.
Well, I think that's a great place to maybe end the conversation. But maybe lastly, just where can people connect with you or find you, Roy?
Yeah, they can find me everywhere. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Noster, Telegram. People can find me easily all over.
Okay. Well, we'll include some of those handles in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, Roy. We really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Roy.